Scott Jennings, who I think is an utter douchebag, had a blow up on CNN yesterday once again. And Neera Tanden, who I think is fantastic, made a point on CNN yesterday, the same point that I was making yesterday when I did my show. And the point that I was trying to make was this. A lot of these MAGA Republicans out there, like Scott Jennings, the douchebag, that's going to be his new nickname on this show, they call people domestic terrorists that light Tesla cars on fire. Listen, I will be the first one to admit, if you're doing that, it's wrong. And I hope you're held to account to the highest extent of the law. If I owned a Tesla, which I didn't, I would certainly want those people held to account. I don't, but I still want them to be put in jail, right? Do I think they're domestic terrorists? Well, I don't know about that. Certainly it's destruction of property. It's arson. And I don't abide by it. And by the way, I haven't heard any prominent Democrat that's an elected official that has condoned this sort of violence either. But immediately, people like Scott Jennings and Donald Trump call whoever did this, lit up some cars on fire. Thank God in Las Vegas, nobody was injured or hurt. But they immediately call them domestic terrorists. But you see, when it comes to January 6th, if you beat police officers with their own batons and pepper sprayed them and bear sprayed them and took their shields from them, some of those officers got traumatic brain injury. We know what happened on January 6th. Those people are called patriots. Beat a police officer. If you're a Donald Trump supporter, you're a patriot and you get pardoned. Light a Tesla car on fire, which I don't condone, you're a domestic terrorist. So Neera Tanden questions Scott Jennings on this. By the way, Scott Jennings lied. He's never been forceful about January 6th. But listen to how he insults her when she puts him in a corner. Listen to this.
Terrorism, people ought to be put in jail and left there for a very long time and be taught a lesson.
So when they do it to a Tesla dealership, it's really bad. But when they do it to the halls of Congress, we should pardon them. Is that your position?
No, I've never. I don't
Are we
support-
okay with the January 6th pardons?
I know you haven't been around for a while, so let me educate you about my position about January the 6th.
I'm so sorry.
Let me
I'm
educate.
so sorry.
Let me educate you.
You don't need to patronize
you don't need to.
me.
You don't
I'm just
need to
saying,
be condescending to me.
I'm not
So let me
condescending.
educate you about my position. You want to attack me? Let me finish it. Let me finish it. Let me finish.
Listen to how angry, we're going to finish it, but listen to how angry and triggered Scott Jennings has got. Let me educate you. Let me educate. He flips out because she got him. Now, in the rest of the audio that you're going to hear Scott Jennings make the case as he never defended the January 6ers. Yes, but he never called them domestic terrorists either. Scott Jennings never once on CNN has ever called those who attacked officers on January 6th domestic terrorists. He said, well, I don't agree with what they did, but let's talk about something else. That's the way Scott Jennings has responded to those. Oh, I don't agree with their actions and their behavior on January 6th. That's the way he responds to it, and then he moves on. It'll be 3 seconds criticizing the January 6th insurrectionists. By the way, on CNN, he's also been on the record as saying their lives have been ruined. He defends them, and he wants people to feel sorry for them. So Scott Jennings is a liar, and here's where he tries to lecture Tanden. I'm going to educate you. Scott Jennings is a liar, and here's him lying on CNN.
Let's do this January 6th
I'm just asking
and
you
then
a
Neera.
question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you're getting emotional.
I'm sorry you're a condescending person who hasn't been paying attention to what I do.
Okay.
Stop, guys.
So here's the issue. I didn't support what happened on January the 6th and was one of the first Republicans to call it out. I don't support the pardons. I have repeatedly, just like my friend Ashley here, said that no violence in our political system is acceptable. But this right here, what's going on with a guy who helps our country, who runs successful companies, who doesn't have to be doing this, and now one of his companies is under systematic terroristic threat and violence all over the country, and people seem to be laughing about it or fine with it. It's outrageous. I've sat at this table and had people say, we should cut Elon Musk from the government totally. He rescued our astronauts today. Is that what we want?
First of all, Scott Jennings is lying again. There is not one Democrat in office that I have seen, quote, laughing about this. So again, Scott Jennings is lying. And when he tries to make the case that he's forcefully been against those who injured cops and were violent criminals on January 6th, you can't show me one soundbite ever where he's ever been on CNN where he was forceful. What he will say and what he has said in the past is, yeah, I don't agree with the behavior of those, but their lives have been ruined. They've been chastised. That's what he does. Not even 1% as forceful as he is with people who light Tesla vehicles on fire. Again, I don't condone it. Nobody was injured. Nobody was killed. Nobody was hurt. You have some property that was damaged, which is terrible. Those people deserve to be in jail as well. But Jennings has been 20 times more forceful on somebody who lights a Tesla car on fire than somebody who beats a cop.
Is that what we want? The treatment of this guy is outrageous. These people who are doing this need to be found, put in jail, and made an example of. That's my point.
Anyone who commits violence against Tesla or Congress or anyone else should be put in jail, 1,000%. But that should not stifle dissent or opposition from Elon Musk.
Give it a little lip service. Give it a little both sides. Go ahead.
So John,
Here, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to say that people are legitimately upset. They're legitimately upset at Elon Musk, and they're doing it on their own. But there is no reason to have violence in the country. But I just wish all of us would support criticism of, or would support punishing people who are violent wherever they are.
For what I
and not
understand,
letting
the
them out
Teslas will
of jail.
fall apart if you just leave them alone anyway. Yeah. There's nothing really anybody really needs to do about it. Just drive them enough. Eventually, the things will start to just like.
I do think.
fall aside from what I've read, allegedly.
Yeah, I've heard that too, by the way. That's Mr. Rogan, not to be confused with Joe Rogan.
And it does mean, Scott.
So simply put, Scott Jennings is lying. He has not been forceful about going after those on January 6th that beat cops. At the worst case scenario or the best case scenario for him, he said, yeah, I don't agree with what they did. That's it. That's not being forceful. So Scott Jennings is a douchebag and he's a liar. And Neera Tanden is making a bigger point, which I agree with. I made the same point yesterday before she made the point on CNN, which is if you light Tesla cars on fire, you're immediately a domestic terrorist. But if you beat police officers on January 6th, you're somehow a patriot and a hostage. That's what she's trying to get at. And Scott Jennings is also part of the problem. He is a condescending prick, a douchebag who gets paid a lot of money on CNN to spew his bigotry and his hatred, and he looks like a clown every day. And I don't know why. I like the opposition being on those types of networks. Scott Jennings is just an idiot. He's a complete idiot with no credibility. And proving that once again, he doesn't think that people should be given human rights. I'm talking about the people who were deported because the White House said that they were gang members. And when questioned today, questioned yesterday, questioned over the weekend, their only response is, well, we're not going to give out their names. And all we know is that some of them had some tattoos on them, and we think they're gang members. So we're not going to give them any bit of human rights at all in due process. We're just going to put them on a plane. And even though a judge has has ruled against us, so be it. They're going to stay there. We're not going to give out their names. We're not going to give out any information or evidence on why we think they're gang members other than some of them having tattoos. It's absolutely ridiculous. And listen to this pathetic weasel, Scott Jennings, on CNN yesterday, defending Donald Trump and the administration's actions here.
What it does mean, Scott, is the judiciary, the judicial branch needs to work its way through it to understand it.
And in the meantime, what? These people get to run wild in the United States while we wait?
No,
That's not the only-
that's not what's happening.
There's a middle ground where we give humans human rights. And as a country, we give people, even people who are in this country without paperwork,
I wouldn't coddle them.
basic human rights. And if you think that's coddling, then I don't think you understand.
Last word is your mic.
Oh,
I got to tell you something.
The reason why we have a constitution actually is to protect everyone who I've heard all these lectures from Republicans about the Constitution protecting people from this overarching government. Just any people.
just any
All
terrorists
people-
that walk
no,
us in?
any person.
I'll just quickly say this.
I just love the hypocrisy.
There's
We
not,
don't care
there's
about the
not a
Constitution
single
now.
American in the
Scott Jennings just called them all terrorists. And my question to Scott Jennings would be, where is your evidence that they are terrorists? The White House hasn't provided names. The White House hasn't provided literally any evidence that these people are terrorists other than the fact that some of them have tattoos. Last I checked, having a tattoo in this country, no matter what it is, doesn't mean you're a terrorist. Pete Hegseth has a tattoo that says, 100% white. Does that mean he's a terrorist? Should we deport him? And Scott Jennings doesn't understand clearly what due process is. He doesn't understand what human rights are. And if he does, then he's just a bald-faced liar. He's probably a little bit of both. And now they're attacking the judge, saying it was appointed by Barack Obama, when obviously the judge that ruled against Donald Trump and his administration was appointed by George W. Bush. They're calling him a left-leaning radical because somehow his wife has donated some money to the Democrat Party. It's the MAGA orange orangutan playbook 101. Judge rules against you. You're doing something unlawful. You're breaking the laws and our Constitution. Just attack the judge. And these idiots like Scott Jennings don't even understand rule of law. But yet they get paid boatloads of money to be right-wing talking heads on CNN. And then the issue of Putin comes into play. And Rogan did a great job yesterday on CNN combating douchebag Scott Jennings, because Jennings is making the case, as is Donald Trump, that Vladimir Putin wants peace. Well, they put that to an end on the CNN panel last night. Have a listen to this.
Okay.
Sure.
Did what happened today get things anywhere closer to peace? A peace that Ukraine would have.
No, it didn't get closer to peace, but it got closer to clarity, John, which is really the more important thing, because what it showed us is that, well, what a lot of people already assume, which is that Putin doesn't want peace, okay? There's no signs that he wants peace. He agreed to the energy ceasefire, and then hours later bombed an entire city, causing a blackout in an entire city. So he, grand opening, grand closing, the whole ceasefire that Trump just secured as his 10-yard play or whatever, fumble, over, turnover, it didn't work, okay? It only took 3 hours. So this whole process, and this is what people don't really talk about on TV, but we should just be honest about it, is about making sure that when this whole thing fails, because they're going to keep fighting, that Trump believes it's Putin who's to blame and not Zelensky.
It's exactly what Ron Filipowski said earlier in this show. Mr. Rogan is 150% correct, while Scott Jennings sits there with his stupid, condescending smirk on his face, looking like the absolute tool that he is. Rogan is correct. The transcripts are very different between the transcripts that the Trump administration put out and the transcripts that the Kremlin put out. Putin is requesting for things that are undeniably a direct threat on Ukraine and a direct threat on them being a sovereign nation. Zelensky will never agree to it. Trump will coddle to Putin and blame Zelensky while more innocent people lose their lives. It's sick and it's disgusting.